In the pristine halls of Gentech laboratories, Dr. Elara Voss, a brilliant and driven scientist, worked tirelessly on her groundbreaking project. Her colleagues admired her brilliance, though her fierce determination often intimidated them. Her current project, the Chrono, held the potential to rewrite the very laws of physics. The chronosphere, a polished silver sphere, was Elara's decade-long endeavor to manipulate time itself. It pulsed with an ethereal blue light, hinting at its immense power. Elara believed it could control time, offering staggering implications for science and medicine. Late at night, Elara worked alone in her lab, driven by the thrill of discovery. She had stabilized the temporal field, a crucial step towards controlled time manipulation. Tonight, she felt closer than ever to unlocking the secrets of the chronosphere. Elara activated the chronosphere, and the lab was engulfed in a blinding flash of light. She felt herself being pulled, stretched, and compressed, her senses overwhelmed. The world dissolved into a chaotic symphony of unknown forces. The light faded, and Elara found herself in a vast open field under an unfamiliar sky. The chronosphere lay beside her, its blue glow a steady pulse. She had traveled through time, but to where and when? Elara took a hesitant step forward, the alien landscape both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The chronosphere was her only link to her own time. She started walking towards a distant plume of smoke, driven by curiosity and the need for shelter. A figure emerged from the tree line, human but primal, with wary eyes. Elara raised her hands in peace, trying to communicate. More figures appeared, their language a strange melody, and Elara knew she had to tread carefully. Elara used drawings to bridge the communication gap, depicting celestial bodies in the chronosphere. Recognition flickered in the villagers' eyes, and a tentative trust began to form. The gap between them narrowed, replaced by shared curiosity. Over time, the villagers accepted Elara, calling her Sky Woman. She documented their culture and customs, finding peace in their simple existence. Her knowledge could be invaluable for the future of scientific understanding. Elara bonded with Leora, a young woman with a thirst for knowledge. They communicated through gestures and drawings, deepening their connection. Leora became Elara's anchor in this unfamiliar time. Elara used her knowledge to improve the villagers' lives, teaching sanitation, building techniques, and irrigation. The villagers' respect for her grew, and she found a sense of purpose. She was no longer just the Sky Woman, she was their protector and provider. A sense of unease settled over the village as a distant plume of dust signaled approaching strangers. Leora's apprehension set Elara's instincts on high alert. These were not friendly visitors, they were harbingers of trouble. News of the approaching riders spread through the village like wildfire. The once peaceful clearing transformed into a flurry of activity. Men gathered their crude weapons, their faces grim, their movements honed by generations of survival against the odds. Women and children scurried about, gathering supplies, securing their meager possessions, preparing for the possibility of flight. Elara, acutely aware of her own vulnerability in this situation, knew she couldn't stand idly by. These people had taken her in, offered her shelter and friendship. Now it was her turn to protect them. She might not be a warrior, but she had something just as potent at her disposal: her knowledge. She gathered the village elders, her mind racing with possibilities. Using a combination of gestures, drawings scratched into the dirt, and the few words of their language she had mastered, she laid out her plan. It was a desperate gamble, a fusion of ancient tactics and principles of physics gleaned from a time far beyond their comprehension. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and red as the band of raiders, their faces obscured by war paint, rode into the village clearing. Their leader, a hulking brute of a man with a cruel glint in his eyes, surveyed the scene with disdain. He had expected easy pickings, a village of simple farmers ripe for the taking. What he found instead was a community united, their fear replaced by a steely determination. The ground had been transformed, riddled with cleverly concealed pits designed to trap horses and disrupt their charge. Crude barricades, reinforced with rocks and interwoven branches, channeled the attackers into narrow choke points. And as the raiders surged forward, a hail of stones, propelled by Elara's makeshift catapults, rained down upon them. The battle, though brief, was fierce. The raiders, taken aback by the ferocity of the defense, fought with savage abandon. The villagers, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate need to protect their own, responded with a courage born of necessity. Elara, her heart pounding in her chest, directed the defense, her voice hoarse from shouting commands. Victory, when it came, was hard won. The ground was littered with the bodies of fallen warriors, both raider and villager. The air was thick with the stench of sweat, blood, and fear. Elara, her hands trembling, surveyed the carnage, her stomach churning. This was the brutal reality of survival in this time, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. As the villagers tended to their wounded and mourned their dead, a heavy silence settled over the clearing. The euphoria of victory was tempered by the knowledge that their lives would never be the same. They had stared death in the face and emerged triumphant, but the experience had exacted a heavy toll. Elara, her clothes stained with dirt and blood, felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. She had pushed herself to the limit, her mind and body stretched thin. Yet sleep was a distant dream. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her, heavier than any physical burden. She had saved these people, yes, but at what cost? The violence she had unleashed, the lives lost, the innocence shattered. It was a heavy price to pay. Had she been wrong to interfere? To impose her knowledge, her morality, on a time not her own? The questions gnawed at her, leaving her raw and uncertain as she sat alone by the dying embers of the communal fire, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows across her face. Elara made a silent vow. She would help these people rebuild, heal the wounds she had inflicted, however unintentionally. She would honor the sacrifices made, the lives lost, by ensuring that their deaths were not in vain. Her journey back to her own time would have to wait. Her place, for now, was here, with the people she had come to call her own. The village slowly began to heal. Scars remained, reminders of the brutal clash with the raiders, yet life found a way to push through the cracks. Children's laughter echoed, a testament to resilience. Elara threw herself into rebuilding, transforming guilt into determination. She became a source of comfort and guidance, a beacon of hope. Late at night, they whispered about the mysteries of the universe. The chronosphere, a bridge between worlds, reminded Elara of her past and future. I don't know, Elara admitted, her voice heavy with a mixture of longing and uncertainty. It's complicated. She'd spent countless hours studying the chronosphere, poring over her notes, trying to decipher the secrets of its operation. The device was a paradox, a fusion of advanced technology and almost mystical energy, its inner workings as elusive as the nature of time itself. Leora, wise beyond her years, nodded in understanding. She had seen the toll that Elara's knowledge, her isolation, had taken on her. She had witnessed the moments of despair, the nights spent staring up at the stars, a haunted look in her eyes. One afternoon, as Elara was reviewing her notes, her brow furrowed in concentration. A realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. It was there in plain sight, hidden within the complex equations and diagrams she had scribbled down in a frenzy of inspiration. The key to controlling the chronosphere, to unlocking its temporal secrets, lay not in brute force or advanced technology, but in something far more fundamental: harmony. She had been so focused on the mechanics, on the precise calculations and energy inputs, that she had overlooked the elegant simplicity at the heart of it all. The chronosphere was not a machine to be controlled, but a force to be understood, to be worked with. It was about finding the right balance, the right frequency, the right resonance with the fabric of time itself. Elara shared her discovery with Leora, knowing it meant she had to leave. Leora listened, her expression a mixture of joy and sadness. The day of Elara's departure dawned bright and clear. The villagers gathered, their faces etched with sorrow and gratitude.
I will never forget you.
Leora embraced Elara tightly, a silent promise exchanged. Elara placed her hand on the chronosphere, feeling peace. A familiar rush of energy surged through Elara. It felt different this time, smoother, more controlled. She opened her eyes, a gasp escaping her lips. The sterile white walls of her lab at Gentech Laboratories greeted her. The air hummed with the low thrum of machinery, a comforting counterpoint to the rhythmic chirping of crickets she'd grown accustomed to. The chronosphere rested on its pedestal, its blue glow subdued, almost apologetic. Had it been a dream? A hallucination brought on by countless nights fueled by caffeine and the relentless pursuit of the impossible? Elara's fingers instinctively reached for her notebook, her lifeline, her anchor to the reality she had briefly left behind. The pages were filled with her meticulous observation, sketches of unfamiliar constellations and translations of a language lost to time. It was real. Her gaze fell upon the digital clock on her workbench. 1 second had passed since she activated the chronosphere. 1 second, a lifetime lived in the blink of an eye. The world outside continued as if nothing had happened, oblivious to the seismic shift that had occurred within her. A wave of dizziness washed over her, a delayed reaction to the temporal displacement. She sank into the chair at her workbench, her body trembling with exhaustion. But even as her physical form cried out for rest, her mind raced, piecing together the fragments of her experience, grappling with the profound implications of what she had accomplished. The Chrono paradox. The words echoed in Elara's mind, a fitting description for the enigma she had stumbled upon. Time, she realized, was not a linear progression, not a river flowing inexorably towards a predetermined destination. It was an ocean, vast and multidimensional, with currents and eddies that could carry one to unimaginable shores. Her journey to the past had not been a violation of natural law, but a confirmation of its boundless complexity. The universe, it seemed, had a way of balancing the scales, of preserving the delicate equilibrium of cause and effect, even in the face of apparent paradoxes. She had left her mark on the past, of that there was no doubt. But her actions had not rewritten history, but rather woven themselves into its intricate tapestry, becoming an integral part of the fabric of what was, what is, and what always will be. The villagers, their lives touched by her knowledge, their fates intertwined with her own, would carry her memory with them, a whisper of the future echoing through the corridors of their past. But what of her own future? Had her journey to the past, her brief but profound connection to another time, another way of life, altered her own timeline, her own destiny? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, a mix of trepidation and exhilaration. Elara knew the chronosphere was too powerful, too dangerous to be left unchecked. Its secrets could fall into the wrong hands, with catastrophic consequences. She documented her experience in meticulous detail. The chronosphere was placed under lock and key, its fate entrusted to a future generation. Elara continued her research, focusing on sustainable technologies and solutions for humanity's challenges. She had glimpsed a future where advanced knowledge was a necessity. Years later, as she stood on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below, she often thought of the villagers, their memory a guiding light on her journey. She wondered if somewhere a young woman with a thirst for knowledge was looking up at the same stars.